Hello! Welcome to 20 at 10 with Nat. I'm your host, Natalie, and my special guest tonight is Curtis McMurtry, who is an Austin singer-songwriter here in town that I have not officially, before tonight, had the pleasure of meeting, but have heard his name buzzing around for at least a couple of years. He just released an album called Toothless Messiah, and it came out in February. And I'm very excited to have him as my guest. Please welcome Curtis McMurtry. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being my guest tonight. Well, we have first a mutual friend that I feel like bears mentioning, Mr. Mike Meadows.
Mike Meadows, the best drummer and percussionist I know, except no substitutes.
Nice. How did you two meet?
We met through Ginny Finley, who's a
Okay.
promoter and manager in town,
Okay.
and hosts a lot of backyard barbecues, and I believe that's where I first met Mike.
Okay.
The first few meetings with Mike were backyard barbecue related, I believe.
Nice.
And then when I graduated college in 2013, Mike was very sweet. My plan was to move to Nashville, which I did at that time. And when Mike found out that that was my plan, he said, "Oh, you should come to my house, and I'm going to give you a bunch of people's numbers so that when you get there, you know some people, or you have or at least a way to meet some people." So he did that for me, and it was extremely sweet.
That's very kind to connect you and make a way for you. That's amazing.
It was great. He introduced me to, by proxy, to most of the East Nashville songwriting scene at the time.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah,
He's a good dude.
definitely. How do you know Mike?
I met Mike. That is a good question.
Right? It becomes hard to
think-
remember eventually.
I think he maybe friend requested me on Facebook, and so I knew his name, but I have like a standing rule that if I haven't actually met a man in person, and I don't know his name, I don't friend him. I don't accept friend requests.
Good policy.
So I just let it kind of sit, because sometimes people, like, kind of like with you, like, I've heard your name, but we've never actually met. So I might just, like, let the friend request hang. And if I run into that person, I'm like, oh, that's who that is. And then I'm not, like, a mean person.
No, that makes total sense, I think.
And so I think his name had just sounded familiar, but I hadn't met him. I didn't know who he was. So I just let it sit. And then I was at a show. I was at Old Settlers, and I was there for Brandy Carlisle, but because I was there for Brandy Carlisle, I was also there for Hayes Carl. And then I saw Mike, or he introduced Mike or something, and I made the connection, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I think he's sitting in my friend request inbox. And then after we actually met, because I, like, started Facebook messaging him, like, are you on stage right now? Like,
Nice.
and then I made the connection that I actually saw him perform with, I think, John Albright. And, like,
Fulbright?
yes,
or
Fulbright.
Gotcha.
I have friends that are Albrights.
No, same.
And yeah, I saw him perform. Gosh, this was probably 2014,
Nice.
and I remember I didn't care at all about John Fulbright at the time.
Oh, that's wild.
I just mean, like, I was so distracted by Mike
Hmm.
and everything that he was doing. I was like, what is he playing? Like, what is happening back there? Like, and it was just
That's fair.
it might have been 3 of them. It was in a very small, like, stage, but I was just mesmerized by what Mike was doing. Like, John was fine or whatever, but, like,
Interesting.
yeah, and
Because
so
I love Mike more than anything, but I consider John Fulbright to be one of the best performers I've ever seen. So that Mike overshadowed him for you is really impressive, I find.
it even, like, it made it on my Instagram profile, and I went and found it later. I was like, no, it's totally you, Mike. And I was so enamored by it. I went and talked to him afterwards, which was way out of my comfort zone, because, like, at least then, I was way too shy to talk to anyone. And I like went up to him and I was all shy and I was like, where did you get that instrument? What are you playing? And he's like, oh, this. I made it.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Built it
Who
all
are
himself.
you? So that's how I met Mike. So I technically met him in like 2014. I just forgot about it. And then I met him again. I was like, that's why his name sounds familiar, because I had already met him. But
Nice.
yes, there's nothing. I have nothing against John Fulbright, y'all. Okay, we have
Oh,
we have
no, yeah.
I'm getting creamed over here.
It's a whole, yeah.
Everyone's like
Yeah, no one's ever said
roasting
John
me over
Fulbright,
here.
before, ever.
Also, hi everyone. Joanna's here. Jim, Corey, Kent, John, Brian. Thanks y'all for joining. Yeah, I mean no disrespect to John Fulbright. I just mean that was just
No, it's a beef
happening?
now.
I've
Like,
never seen.
It's
But
gonna
like
be
when
everywhere. No Depression's gonna have a whole article. Natalie Price slams John
artists.
Fulbright. Yeah.
Local artists shut
Up your
down.
game, John.
Local artists being boycotted by Austin because she casually mentioned. Anyways, oh hey Heather, how you doing? Brian talking about. What are you saying, Brian? 2014 distance. 160 miles from Tulsa. Had to see him in Fayetteville.
Yeah,
It's
you
the
have to get.
Oklahoma- Yeah.
You have to get the. Imagine trying to get the Blue Door tickets for Fulbright.
So here's what
It's
happened.
impossible.
I don't have any. I'm just gonna dig the hole deeper.
Do it.
So I was actually there to see David Ramirez, and I waited in this giant line, and I listened to David Ramirez outside of the room. And by the time I got up there, David was
What
done.
venue was this?
This was at the time Winflow. Remember that
Oh
place?
yes, yeah, I
In
do.
that cool little like underground room.
Yeah, that was a fun place.
Yeah, and I was just so annoyed that I missed David Ramirez. I was like, well, I'm just gonna at least sit here because it
How
was
did
a
you
cool
get
room.
into Fulbright when you couldn't get into Ramirez?
Because I was waiting in line, and eventually it was like at capacity. So as people left, then like people could go and sit in.
Wow.
And I think
So other people left before Fulbright.
they did.
Wild.
You know, they did. Also, while we're talking about faux pas, let's see, 2014. This was really, I was playing out, but not super seriously. It was all kind of still just a dream. And this lady, I was standing in the parking lot. I think it must have been after that show, maybe. I don't know. One of the ladies that organized that event saw me standing there, and she was like, "Oh, are you the artist?" And I knew that she was asking, are you the person I'm looking for who needs to go on stage? And I was like, no. But I realized later I should have said, yes, I'm an artist, just not the artist you're looking for. And I realized I like denied. That is how I felt about myself. Like I
What
denied.
you should have done is just said yes and then gone on stage and killed it, and then that's your origin forever.
I mean, that
That's
would
like
be
what ends up in your
hilarious.
press release for
It would have
20
been
years.
a thing. I was with a guy at the time, and it just would have been a thing. It
Even
would've-
better.
Yeah.
Just left him and her old life behind, hit that stage.
I should have, He turned
Over
out to
and
be
out.
quite the dud. Anyways. Yeah, well, that was my 2014 South by Southwest story
Nice.
of seeing John Fulbright and not caring about John Fulbright and being really enamored with whatever Mike was doing. Cool. All right. All my confessions are out, y'all. There it is.
I remember I also saw John Fulbright and Mike play at South by in 2014 at the Saxon, and I felt so cool because I didn't have my wristband or whatever that year, was not official, could not have gotten in, but I happened to have played at the Saxon like the week before, and Steven, who was working the door, knew me from a week previous and was like, "Oh, Curtis, come on in." And so I got to see the show on just
Nice.
pure rock star privilege, only because, it had only been a week. So
Yeah, that's
he
awesome.
remembered me, and it was great.
Man, like those moments where you get like ushered inside,
I felt so cool.
the brief glimpse of VIP status is really fun.
I'm not sure something equivalent has happened since. And I think it's only because it was such a great show that it really was like, this is what it's like. This is the life.
Awesome. Yeah, that's funny. Have you ever been official at South by? You said you weren't official then.
Yeah, many times. Now, I think 5 years official, but not all consecutive. And it's been sometimes weird where I'll be releasing a record but won't be official. And then sometimes 2 years out from any release, still end up with an official showcase with nothing to really promote.
Nice.
So I haven't figured out the alchemy yet.
I have not ever figured it out, so good for you.
I would have been official in 2020, and I was all excited. I had full band arrangements of new songs all planned out. We'd rehearsed a bunch, and then,
Yeah. They did something for 2021. Were you a part of that?
No, I got to apply for free, but I was not selected. So,
Well,
how it goes.
here's to next year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask you more about the album since you've just released it. Toothless Messiah, congratulations.
Thanks.
I was listening through it earlier and I definitely hear. Can you hear the fingerprint? That's not the appropriate phrase, but I like it. I heard the fingerprint of Mike Meadows all over that album.
He is the backbone of the whole thing, and it's so Mike played on my previous release as well. And when I was going to make Toothless Messiah, there was no question about who I was getting for drums and percussion, to the point where I was like, well, this won't get recorded until Mike can record it. He keeps fairly busy on the road. And so...
Was this a pandemic record then because he was more available?
It was finished in the pandemic, but I'd actually tracked all of Mike's stuff before. He tracked everything in one day in January. So we didn't know what was going to hit us yet.
Well, I appreciate any artist who's been releasing music in the midst of the pandemic. So good on you. Congratulations.
Thanks. With that one, I intended it originally to come out in summer of 2020. And the reason for that was I really wanted it to come out before the election in 2020.
Oh.
That was really what the songs were about, to a large extent. And it didn't bother me so much that I didn't make that deadline. It wouldn't have been possible. It took too long to finish up the mixing remotely. And I tried really hard to make all those songs relevant beyond the 2020 presidential election as well.
Right.
To not actually say Trump's name throughout it, even though I was writing lots of songs about dictators.
Right.
So I like to think it'll still be relevant and is maybe, I don't know, I think it always will be, because Trump wasn't the first sort of strong man and certainly won't be the last.
For sure. My favorite track so far, anyways, my favorite track is Praise Caesar. And I made a note, I really enjoyed the harmonies also on that track. The harmony melody really played well together, and yeah.
That's Diana Burgess singing harmonies. She also plays cello on the record and is an incredible singer-songwriter in her own right. She released an album also in 2020 called You Run, where she plays everything on the record.
Wow.
But Diana and I have been playing and singing together for 8 years, I want to say now. And she's just a genius. Her harmonies are spectacular.
Yeah, I really appreciated it and enjoyed that song in particular. Who are some artists that inspired this particular album maybe for you? As you were in the season of writing, of course, but then also in the season of production. What artists were you listening to at that time?
So, I was and always am listening to a ton of Fiona Apple.
Okay.
She's just always going to be a guiding light for me for songwriting. I feel like there's no one more vicious and more precise than Fiona Apple in terms of her musicianship and lyricism. I just think she's one of the best songwriters alive. And so there's never enough Fiona Apple albums for me. There's 5 total, and then I have all, like, everything she's done for a movie soundtrack or anything. I have all of that too.
Nice.
So always listening to that. I think especially leading up to making Toothless Messiah, I was really focused on Fiona Apple's album Win the Pawn, which is the one that actually has a crazy long title. I think still has the record for longest album title.
Oh, interesting.
But that album is just, it just hits so hard, and even the kind of more mellow songs have this deceptive edge to them that I really appreciate. So definitely that, and definitely Tom Waits is a similar guiding light for me, and I was listening a lot to one of my favorite albums of his, Mule Variations. There's just a really gritty and organic texture to that whole record that I wanted to make something akin to that.
Awesome. And kind of going with that, well, sort of going with that theme, if you could build a show right now and play with any 2 artists currently alive, what would your dream bill be? I'm assuming maybe Fiona?
Definitely Fiona. It's hard because I don't know that I want to meet heroes of mine necessarily, having met a few. I want to be at a Fiona Apple concert, certainly. No, I'd take that back. I would love to be on a bill with Fiona. Forget it. That would be great. I'm also a huge Punch Brothers fan.
Ooh, okay.
Really love Chris Thiele and his work, and I'd love to be in close proximity to that.
I would love to attend that show, so please keep me posted.
So they're actually buds, and there was one tour when Chris Thiele was still, when his main thing was still Nickel Creek, where they toured with Fiona Apple and then backed her up they were her backing band for her set, and you can find bits of that tour on YouTube, and I would love them to just release a live album of it, but I don't think there's any plans to.
Would they have enough recorded? Were they recording live while they were?
I'm positive they were, because I know Thiele has been pretty big about archiving every live performance he's done since he was 15 or something. So, yeah.
I was very into the same thing a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Every performance was trying to make sure it was recorded, but
I know Warren Hood in town is very good about that as well, where there's just massive amounts of Warren Hood concerts that I wish I had access to.
that's so funny. One thing I like to ask each of my guests is, what is one of your earliest memories where you remember being just grabbed by a piece of music? Maybe a song, maybe a performance, maybe a classical piece, something where you just were arrested and like in awe and you loved it and you wanted more of it.
So this is going to be maybe too cheesy or too cute, but my dad's a musician too, songwriter in town, James McMurtry, and I used to go to I went to his shows my entire life. I used to sell CDs and
Nice.
merch for him, and I remember, I'm not sure exactly how old I was, probably 6, but I know it was far from the first concert of my dad's that I'd attended. Like, it was a very normal thing for me by that point. It was, what Dad did.
Right.
But there was one night where he was on stage with 2 other songwriters, also Austin songwriters, and he just blew them off the stage. Like, there was something about seeing my dad next to 2 other really talented, great songwriters, but that he was just so much better, that his words were so much better, that his guitar playing was so much better, that he'd made, I think, superior work to either of these other truly great artists. And I remember that moment of just thinking like, wow, my dad's amazing. He's so good at this. He's the best at this. And I feel like for whatever reason, that concert, I heard my dad's songs differently, where they suddenly became like, these are amazing songs. These aren't just dad's songs. These are great in a vacuum somehow.
Interesting.
And that
Yeah.
stuck out for me.
That's really sweet and cool. How old, you don't remember how old you were?
Around 6, probably. Six
Wow.
to 8, somewhere in there.
Um, that's really cool. Yeah, awesome.
What about you?
Well, I have several memories from my childhood, but the one that stands out most recently is I was a dancer when I was a kid. I danced ballet, and there were certain classical pieces that I really enjoyed, and one of them was Hall of Mountain King.
It's a great one.
Yeah, and so I would like dance up a storm across the living room, just like breathless, like sweaty, as like a 6 or 7 year old, just like dancing my heart out, acting out whatever it was that day to that song, to that piece. Yeah, I remember specifically dancing to that piece, and like no one was around or anything. I was just dancing by myself, but having a ball. So I just could not get enough of that song, and it was so like thrilling. And it is more of a like da, 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 like intense piece, but
Yeah.
it was so fun to dance to and so high energy, and I loved it. So, but I
It's
think to this day I can't really listen to high energy classical music when I'm trying to work because like my heart just like
sure. I mean,
races.
it's punk rock basically.
Yeah,
Like
so
Beethoven, if you're not doing one of the more pastoral pieces, like Beethoven can be intense.
yeah,
Um,
it was
Grieg can be
intense.
very intense.
Well, let me ask you one more question before we move on to the next part. So, I've been asking this more and more to my guests. What part of the music process, and it could be literally listening to and consuming it, like personal enjoyment of it. It could be the writing of it, the creating, the production, the performance. Like what aspect of the music process brings you the most joy?
For me, it's definitely editing and refining lyrics is my jam.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
it's for me, it's kind of akin to whittling almost, or sharpening, where I'm trying to make every line as balanced and precise as possible. And I love ending a verse or a chorus with something unexpected, some sort of jab. And so I love sharpening a song and just feeling that energy of like, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to deliver this and people are going to gasp or something, or
Nice.
laugh or something. Like I'm that process of shaping it.
Do you feel like you're able to actually achieve that thing you're going for? Like people
Yeah.
gasp when you intend for them to gasp.
Generally, and if
People
they
laugh when you intend for them to laugh.
usually, that one can definitely depend on the room or the venue,
Right.
or the age of the crowd, admittedly.
Fair. Fair.
But usually I've learned which audiences are going to respond to which songs and can tailor a set accordingly.
Nice.
Initially, that was not something I was good at. I had this very like forget what everyone thinks attitude of just these are the things I've written and everyone has to deal with it, and that did not serve me well initially. I've backed off from that.
Nice.
So
Well, it sounds like you honing your skills as an entertainer and a performer, one who can really read the room.
yeah, and I was learning the difference between singing to people and singing at them, where I felt I used to sing at them a lot. Which was, there are some performances where that's totally appropriate, and others where you're better off not doing it.
Like when you're in a restaurant.
Yeah, probably don't need to play your deepest, darkest in those moments or your most aggressive material.
But singing at, I don't know. If your job is to be background music,
True. I don't know.
what?
For me, it seems like even when I'm background music, it's often been more profitable for me to try and be sweet than trying to be aggressive in that context and sort of try and lead
Yes.
people into it where I think like I just don't think I have the vibe to be like, all right, here's this rock thing, pay attention to it. I find I have people tune out when I give them more in that way. And if I can play a little softer, sometimes I can lead them in.
It's a good observation. Also, we had a couple comments come in. I had my notes pulled up so I didn't see the thread. Brian was making a joke, I think, a pun
Ooh,
about Fiona Apple.
what was that? Oh, true. Ah, fair.
Joanna loved your story, but I don't know which story she loved. And then Tom is joining us from Louisiana.
Oh, cool.
Brian says no Vivaldi.
I, Vivaldi's not my jam. I'd rather like give me Shostakovich and Prokofiev and Stravinsky and Debussy any day. Which isn't fair. They're not contemporaries, but I don't know. I like the 20th century for classical music.
Fair. I'm going to go ahead and drop in your website information so I don't forget later. And then let's move on to the pop questions.
Fun.
If I can find them. I moved everything around today. This has been an interesting week. It still feels like the weekend. I feel like I haven't stopped since like Thursday of last week. Okay. So, these are all random and sporadic. If there's one that makes you uncomfortable or something, just say, ask me a different one and I'll move on. All right.
Fair.
Have you ever been in a feud with a family member?
Yeah, perpetually. Whole sides of my family I'm in.
Really?
Yeah, I
Like
yep.
full on actual feuds or like
no,
a
like
funny haha feud?
not funny, but
Oh, okay.
not usually involving any sort of outbursts. Usually just kind of we know we have fundamental disagreements and every now and then those can bubble to the surface, but mostly we know we're never going to convince each other. So
Certain things don't get talked about?
nothing gets talked about. Like communication has largely died for a couple sides of my family.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm not.
Well, I just mean like,
yeah, it's a shame, but it's
yeah.
what it is.
Have you ever worn an item of clothing that you designed?
Yes.
Seems like it would be if you're a musician and you've ever made a t-shirt.
Strangely, I've never. No, I have made T-shirts, just not for my solo material. But I was actually thinking of something slightly more creative from before I had
Ooh.
any sort of music career.
Do tell.
The oldest I could have been was 10, but I made myself a headdress for the 4th of July parade that was sort of based on Magneto's helmet from the X-Men.
Okay.
I cut it out of cardboard, but I also sort of really liked eye patches at the time. So it was
Okay.
sort of this cardboard helmet, but then one eye was covered because that was what I was looking for. I had green lightning bolts decorating it with the shiniest construction paper I could find, and then a single peacock feather in the back, and then some other sort of fake red and yellow feathers as well. But sort of jutting out like they were spikes, like there was no kind of fan presence. It was like, it was bizarre and I was really proud of it. And I did wear it in the parade.
Oh, you wore it in the parade.
Yeah.
Did other people make similarly elaborate costumes or headdresses?
I believe my best friend at the time made something similar, but not as grand.
All right. That's amazing. I hope you have pictures somewhere.
I don't think I do. I
Oh,
remember it so well
no.
though.
Yeah, Joanna said the same thing. I want to see a photo of that headdress.
Yeah, the best part was I call it headdress, but it was more of a helmet, like a
Mm-hmm.
helmet with a, and you could only really see the peacock feather. A helmet
How
or a crown.
did it inhibit you getting in and out of the car? Like, seems like it would be,
So
make
it
things
was in
difficult.
neighborhood. I was able to walk
Okay.
to the parade, and so
Okay.
there was no limitation.
No limitation. All right. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah. So the first time I saw you perform was at a micro sessions event in
Oh.
a hair salon that had closed down for the day. I was there to see my good friend Anna Rennick, who performs under the name Born Again Virgin
Yes.
that night,
They
and
were great.
yeah, and I saw you and you played kalimba that night, I believe, in Biro. I'm not sure if
No,
you're
you're
in
right. It's a
Biro as a
kalimba.
gotcha. Um, and I was just curious, because I also write songs on multiple instruments. How does switching instruments change your writing process, or does it? Is it freeing? Do you end up in boxes on multiple instruments, or not so much?
I think I I definitely at the time was in a rut. The same finger picking pattern for every song and the same go to, chords or chord progressions, or like I was just tired of everything I was doing. And I was going to Montana and I couldn't bring my guitar, so I found the smallest instrument I could find, and my friend Rosalind, who's a percussionist, she let me borrow her kalimba, and that was awesome. So I could pack that in my luggage, take that with me. So I learned
Nice.
how to play it on the trip, and I was in a songwriting group, and we had a song due Sunday at midnight. So I had to learn it and write a song and submit it by Sunday at midnight. I
That's
used up
great.
all of my data trying to upload that dang song because we're in the middle of nowhere in Montana. There was like no cell reception.
Yeah.
But did it, got it. And that song, I love that song so much that I play it. That's the song I played that night, The Island. And I continue to play it because it's so great. It's so different, and it is, my Hail Mary when I'm in the loud bar and everyone's like tuned out, because it's a person with a guitar.
Nice.
And I'll get, for at least 2 minutes or at least a minute, like something, like there's a buzz in the bar, like that kind of just like stops, and everyone's like, what is going on? And so it just kind of resets the room a little bit, which is nice. So, but I wrote one other song on that instrument, but it wasn't as good as the other one, so I don't play it. And I feel like for the kalimba anyways, I think I might have tried to play it twice in a set, and I was like, that's too much. Like I can only play it once in a set, and after that
That's
it just
fair.
it loses its magic, and it's you can get tired of it. I don't want it to lose the charm.
Sure.
So yes, I think writing, long story short, I think writing on a different instrument is really key to help me get out of a rut, because it forces you to figure out or not figure out chords on another instrument. Like if I don't know how to play it, I'm just figuring out something that sounds good. Do you have a friend joining you?
Yep. He desires extra dinner.
Nice.
Sorry, he's walking away. All right, get him.
No, you're good. Yeah, I would say different instruments help me, like force me to think differently about writing and finding the melody. So I enjoy it.
Nice.
I don't own too many instruments, but
Oh, nice. You've escaped that
if they're
economic
small enough,
sinkhole.
I'm not opposed to it. But I think the next one might be some sort of like banjolele or something, just because I like the sound. What? Why are you?
Oh,
What?
that's my jam. In fact, on Toothless Messiah, there's quite a bit of banjolele.
Nice.
Um,
I was hearing some. I was like, huh, that sounds like banjo, but also kind of.
yeah, check out Spanky's Banjo Ukes.
Okay.
You're from Fort Worth, right?
Originally, yes.
That's where the best banjoleles are made currently.
Oh,
Company called
okay.
Spanky's, and they made one for Matt the electrician, and later made one for
Oh.
me. They do some really beautiful custom inlays, and they are for certain the best banjoleles that have ever been made. So
I
can't
will be
recommend
reaching out
Spanky's
to
enough.
you before I purchase one.
Of course, yeah, I'll hook you up.
Spankies?
Spanky's Banjo Ukes.
Cool. All right, made a note. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on other instruments. I mainly play guitar. That's what I
Nice.
learned on. I don't play keys or anything. I play badly, but I don't like read sheet music on piano or anything.
Same.
Yeah. Well, I will make myself answer these questions too.
All right. Sorry, I'm gonna grab my friend really quick.
Yes, introduce us to your friend. Also,
This is Odin.
Odin, nice.
Mm-hmm. No paparazzi.
Nice. One quick way to
Do you like animals or not so much?
I do. I happen to be allergic to cats, but I do like them.
I'm also allergic, but it's become worth it to me to just swallow Zyrtec every day and deal.
You know, I tried that for a year and I got sinus infections every other month, so it didn't really work.
Ah, I see.
Okay, have I ever eavesdropped on a stranger's conversation? Absolutely, I have.
All the
Absolutely.
time. Yeah, hasn't
I'm
everyone?
a songwriter. Of course I.
Yeah, I'd say a good
If you
chunk
were
of
dumb
my
enough to
songs,
talk
yeah.
that loudly around me,
Yeah.
that's your fault. I have
Good.
heard some really odd conversations in coffee shops, and people forget how loud they are on the phone.
Mm-hmm. And airports too. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, and sometimes
Because
I'm
no
like,
one's ever more stressed than they are in an airport, so
yeah,
you
and I'm
can
like,
lose every filter.
why are you? We can all hear you. We all know about your marital problems right now.
Yeah.
Some of it's stuff you don't want to know, but some of it's interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean I've definitely done the trick where I like have headphones in, but I'm not listening to anything. I'm just listening to who's next to me.
Okay, yeah. I'll do that, or I'll put my headphones on and I will put on white noise if I to drown everybody out, or like if I'm writing a song. It doesn't matter where you go, everybody's playing music, and I can't write music while I'm listening to music, so I have to like drown it out at a coffee shop or something. But yeah, I've heard the most interesting conversation I've probably heard was at a Starbucks in Dallas, and I don't remember why I was there. I think it was either working on something like very boring for work, or I was meeting someone there, possibly reading something I wasn't super into. And I heard this woman and man like on the other side of this little wall with like plants on it, but it wasn't a barrier, you know. It was just like I can hear everything are talking, and I couldn't tell if she had hired a private detective to watch her son or her significant other. But
Oh,
like
that's
he was
creepy
giving her
that was ambiguous.
well, I just like they'd already been like they knew who they were talking about, but they weren't like, so my husband, you know, like
Sure.
it can be
Yeah.
ambiguous. They just said he, or like, well, this is where he's been,
Fair.
or whatever, and I was like, oh man. And I was trying to, I was like, but then I started like trying to listen, and I was like, I felt kind of bad about it. I was definitely like, ooh, like this is like an episode on some show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 2 feet away from me. Anyways, maybe that's rude, but I could hear everything.
Yeah, they were being rude.
I was not trying. I mean, I was trying eventually, but I wasn't at first. Anyways, yes, Heather, I agree. It's part of the job being a songwriter, like paying attention to the things around you.
Yep.
Oh, Chris says you were the last show he ever saw at Strange Brew.
Oh, neat. I hope it was a good one. I really liked playing there, and I'm excited to play at Quacks now that they've got that space up and running.
Heather, I agree. They chose to have a conversation in a public place. That's on them. But that also means all of your conversations and mine in a public place are possibly being listened in on. worth remembering.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I'm like, oh, I probably don't even give anyone anything good to listen to. Like, it's probably fairly
Yeah.
dull overhearing what I have to say in public
Do you ever
spaces.
actually think about like the things you're saying out loud in a public space? Like if I'm on the phone, sometimes I'm aware if I'm making plans. Like I try not to actually say where I'm going to be
So
because that creeps me out a little bit. But
the times when I'm most aware of what I'm saying in a public space is when I'm in a restaurant with my mother, where sometimes I'm just chiefly aware someone could be listening in and either totally understanding and maybe know the person that's being discussed,
oh,
or completely um, misunderstand what's being discussed.
oh my gosh, that's funny.
But yeah, those are the only times.
Mine would be with my grandmother
Nice.
because she is legally blind and mostly deaf. So she might ask you a question, but unless it's a yes or no, like she cannot understand you. Even then, she might think it's the opposite of what you said. So like, she probably thinks 100 things about me that are wrong, but probably because she thought I said something else.
Yeah.
But like I don't know where she gets what she says, but like, I'll give you an example.
Please.
My cousin, not my cousin, blah, blah. Okay, family wedding. It's actually my brother's wedding. And my multiple funny things happened at the ceremony, but what I will focus on is after the ceremony. I had just arrived, I think, from out of town, so I had not yet seen her. And so I decided I'm going to walk her to the car and be like, oh, this is Natalie. She got really excited. And then she immediately started like, well, that was so nice, wasn't it? And then she started into territory that I don't really want to be talking about in public and with her. And she started like consoling me, and she was like, don't worry, you'll find somebody and blah blah blah. And like, he might not be what you expected. He might be a divorcee. He might have children. And I was like, what are you doing? Stop. I'm fine, everyone.
I like
Happily,
that she's just thinking like, keep your options open.
yes. And she's like, you don't have to be sad. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm really happy, everyone, I promise. We're in like
Nice.
like family and friends are around, in this atrium, and I'm like, we need to get you in the car.
Yeah.
Stop talking about this.
Fun.
Yeah, I was not excited about that conversation. It's because the way she said it made it sound like I had been complaining about it or something. I'm like, I literally have never talked to her about it.
But someone did.
I was like, she can't understand what I'm saying, so I would never, unless I was seriously dating someone or like getting engaged or something, I would never talk to her about a guy.
Sure.
Because there's too much room for misunderstanding. So for her to be like, anyways, I was mortified.
It's nice that someone's keeping her informed, though. I feel like I think that's important for any older relative. I feel like that's part of their role is to provide both wisdom and embarrassment in public spaces.
She's provided lots of embarrassment. And it's funny because she's not embarrassed.
Good.
Like, yeah, not at all. So she likes to talk about her filing cabinets. I was like, oh, come on, Mama Joe. So funny. Anyways, that's my grandma.
Nice.
We should play songs before, I'm looking at the time, before we run out of time.
Cool.
Are you playing something from the new album, perhaps?
I will start with a short a cappella piece from the new album.
Ooh, okay.
And then I'll play something from a much older album, I think.
Ooh, okay.
That's all right.
Would you like the screen to yourself, or would you like me to hang out with you?
Either way.
I like hanging. I'll hang out.
Sure. Is there any other kind of power besides old names on old buildings, old friends in new uniforms, big fish in small oceans. When you fall, no one will catch you. Get used to starting over. Don't sink your roots too deep. And when they come to cut us down, run until they lose your scent. Some of us will stay behind, setting traps, feeding on parasites. Yeah, when they come to cut us down, I want you to run and don't look back. As long as some of us survive, we have not lost, we all live on. I saw you shining like a lighter in a foxhole, and without delay I put you in my sights. For many years I watched you dancing in my crosshairs, but I couldn't pull the trigger for my life. And then one day I got the stones to take your hand, dear, and I won you with a flower and a smile. Though all I had to offer was a fireplace and a face you learned to love after a while. One day I was called to serve my country, and I went because I'd never been away. And I returned home with a bandage on my forehead and a memory that gets weaker every day. Now you never touch me like you used to, and my injuries don't even start to heal. And I was sure right then and there that I would lose you. Oh, how wretched your beauty makes me feel. And I used to think our love was but a trifle. I was surprised it lasted through the month of May. But now I am too old to lift my rifle. You're still here to watch me waste away. My love, I've lost so many friends since we got married, and I know that you could say the same to me. I believe I was the first to ever catch you. Perhaps I should be the first to set you free. I saw you shining like the sunlight through the window, and the truth that started slowly sinking in. And I knew when I walked out the door this morning, I would never see your pretty face again. So don't go searching for my body in the cattails. Just be happy that I've found a place to rest. By the time you read this letter, I'll be gone, dear. You know I love you, but this is for the best. You know I love you, but this is for the best.
What is that one called?
That one's called Foxhole. It's
Foxhole.
on my first solo album, Respectable Enemy.
Is there anything else? Your handle, our display names tonight. Curtis has his. Where's my? Here we go. Venmo on his handle if you would like to send any tips tonight. I just launched a Kickstarter today, so if you actually want to send me a tip, I'd prefer you send it to Kickstarter. Actually, I'll drop that in the chat as well. Also, you have so many claps from so many people. Koondog! Everybody tuning in. Alright, I'm double checking one little... I actually played outside today.
How was that?
You know, it was really warm and muggy, and then it's like a cold front blew in or something. And it got really cloudy and cool and breezy, and it was really nice. And I actually got to wear my denim jacket, and I was so excited. I love layers.
Where were you?
I was at Greater Goods Coffee.
Cool.
Over on East 6th.
Never been.
There you are. This little guy. It is, you know what? I was really excited to be there because I was going to work remotely inside and, grab a lovely beverage. And by the time I got there, they had closed. But there was a vaccination event happening that I was playing music for. And
cool.
So I worked remotely on the porch without a tasty beverage, but it was still delightful.
Nice.
Anyways, all that to say, really grateful for the weather, but it has wreaked havoc on my instrument today. Okay, this one's called... I almost changed my mind based on what you just played, but this one's called In My Dreams. I discovered you in a parking lot. My second trip to Music Town. We met again in a bar in New Orleans, and ever since I struggled to put you down. You're just sitting there in the cupboard shadows, patiently waiting, 'cause you know that I know that just as soon as I can justify it, I'm coming for you, 'cause you never tell me no. There was a time you were never on my mind, and now it seems you're even in my dreams. Well, I never believed in the magical until you cast your own spell on me. Just like a bug in the blue light of death, I put my faith in technology. There was a time you were never on my mind, and now it seems you're even in my dreams. When does distraction become an addiction? The line's too thin to know. You're so beautiful, and I don't want to let you go. There was a time you were never on my mind. Now it seems you're even in my dreams. There was a time you never crossed my mind, and now it seems you're always in my dreams. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Is that one on your record that's on Bandcamp?
Not yet.
Not
it is
yet.
a one I just wrote within the last
Wow.
few months.
Awesome.
Very excited. It has come out of the time of Corona.
Ah, excellent.
Yes.
So are you kickstarting for a full album
I am.
then? Sweet.
I am. And it
So
is
that'll be on
in.
there then?
It's on the set list. It's on the list of songs.
Awesome.
I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
That was really great.
Thank you. Also, somebody else joined us. Firestorm. I think that's David. Hi, David. How you doing?
Cool name.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining. Do you have anything else that I forgot to mention that you want to mention before we part ways? I'm gonna share your links again also.
Not really. I guess just sort of a general plug, like I always do, to sort of say, if you love independent artists, buy their music on Bandcamp. That was a boon for me throughout the pandemic, and I just want to continue to sing Bandcamp's praises because
Yeah.
I think they're a great company, and I think Spotify is a terrible one. So, well, we have to have our music on that too. Just if you love independent artists, check out our Bandcamps.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to send a tip to Curtis, please feel free to go ahead. His Venmo will live forever in this video. And if you liked that song and you are curious about a Kickstarter, please go pre-order the album. It is live today. I posted the link already, but yes, please consider doing that and spreading the word. Curtis, thank you so much for being my guest tonight and hanging out with me, taking a chance on a stranger.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
so much stranger, friend of friends.
That's true.
You know.
But yeah, I guess technically we'd
Fair.
chit-chatted a tad. But I still appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight and hanging out with me and sharing some stories, sharing a song, letting me ask all of the questions, and being a wonderful guest.
This is really cool, and this is an awesome thing you're doing.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Thank
a lot
you
for
for
having
being
me.
a part of the 20 at 10 family. I've never said that before, but sure, we're 20 at 10 is a
It's
family.
195 of us now, or did you have repeats already?
I think there's technically 197. There were 2 half
Ooh.
episodes.
Wow, cool.
So that's a long story. But in number, this is 195. So a
Awesome.
nice, beautiful multiple of 5. Multiples of 5 are my favorite numbers.
Who's the 200th guest? I should ask about all the people coming up, but I'm curious who the 200th guest is.
Give me a second to pull it up.
Sorry.
I don't have it all memorized. It might make, I hope it doesn't make the stream choppy. I have all my tabs, all of my apps closed. Is it gonna come up? And we have, let's see here. Whoop. All right, ugh. Okay. Ooh, it might be Larry Joe Taylor.
Oh, neat.
Unless I schedule someone on a Saturday in between. But, do you know who Larry Joe Taylor is?
Never met, but know the name.
He kind of started the Texas music scene out in Stephenville. And they host a couple festivals every year. And they have a songwriter contest that I was a part of this spring and last spring. And they've just been really kind to me. So he's a pretty cool cat.
I had no idea there was a songwriting contest in Stephenville. I've been driving through that town on my way to Archer City, where my family's from, my entire life.
Do
Never
you also drive
stopped
through
anywhere.
Heiko?
Oh yeah, just all the way up 281.
Yeah. So when you, I guess, turn at that light in Heiko to go
Past the
towards
Bolero.
Stephenville, yes. If you just kept going, you would run into this house, like this blue house, I think. Have you been there? It's Weissman Chocolates.
Yeah, I have. I've stopped twice for those chocolates.
They're
But I often
so
stop at
good.
that Bolero, so I should be stopping for chocolates more
You
frequently.
should. Okay, they have these things called peanut butter meltaways that are
I've
like,
experienced, yeah.
okay. Anyways, if y'all are ever in Heiko, go check out Weissman Chocolates. They're not paying me to say this. They don't need to because those chocolates are good.
Nice.
Anyways, yes, I can tell you more about it if you would like, the songwriter competition or whatever. But anyways, yes, there's a thing, and there are some good people out there doing some cool things. So,
Awesome.
long story short.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, y'all have a good night.
Got thunder over here already.
I was about to say, is that thunder?
Yeah.
All right, well,
Seen
maybe I'll get some
lightning, too.
thunder soon. Okay, awesome. Y'all have a good night, and I'll see y'all soon. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Natalie.